So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminski Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. It's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr., the Brand Doctor. And today we're going to be talking about who the hell is your brand for? So I brought one of my dear friends back on the show, my man Brett Brown. What is shaking, my dude?
Hey, how's it going, Henry?
Dude, we were chatting it up earlier today about this topic of conversation, and I said, we got to have an episode on this because it's so important. We're going to be diving deep today, talking about target audience and identifying who that audience is for your brand and creating branding, I should say, or content that sells versus the big popularity contest that's out there on social these days with, well, I got more likes and follows and viewers and saves than you. And come on, give me a break. All right, well, show me your bank account. Let me see that. Are those shares and likes and follows supporting your family? That's what it comes down to. Saves and likes and follows don't pay the bills. Great content that serves an ideal client does. So I wanted to talk to you today about target audience, identifying who that is, and who your brand is actually for, so that you could get a nice ROI on your branding and marketing efforts. So my man Anks Patel is in the house. What is going on? One of our live watchers and viewers. Yes, my brother going strong. I love it, Anks. And I encourage everybody that's watching this live to join in on the conversation, drop some comments, ask some questions. We're going to be here for a couple of minutes. It's not always every day you get access to folks like us when it comes to branding and marketing. So I encourage that. And so Brett, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Where's people going wrong with this stuff? I mean,
yeah. So I think it's a few things, right? Like when you talk about bank accounts, I think it's really a question of like effectiveness, right? Like, yeah, who you're talking to, like who you're creating a thing for versus, who's buying your products, who's right. Buying what you're selling, or even like who's, buying into what you're selling, even if it's not a purchase yet, even if you just want brand loyalty or people to just like you more or think of you differently. Are people buying in, and I think, it's interesting. The number of briefs you come across and the number of clients you talk to who don't always think through, especially on some of the things they don't always consider touch points, like who is this for?
Mm-hmm.
Like so many times we can make things for an effect or for an action, but we don't really think about if that's the right thing to be doing even.
Right. And listen, I'll raise my hand to the sky and say that I've fell for it, quote unquote. I've put out content that does get a ton of views, a ton of likes, a ton of comments. But then I look back and I'm like, oh shit, it's not the right content. It's more geared towards more of a beginner. And that's not the clients that I serve. My clients are well into six figures in their business, and they want to get to seven, and they want to be more efficient, and they want more impact, and they want an identity that addresses them and speaks, right? So, I always say to myself, well, I have to slow down sometimes when I try to go put out content, because I'm quick to put it out there, but then realize, oh crap, it's the wrong message.
Yeah. Yeah. So social is a great example of this question. Like who is this for? I think a lot of times there's so many different touch points that you want to ask that question. Like the two most important questions I think we ask whenever we write briefs is, who is it for, and what are we trying to say? Because what you're trying to say is why they would even take that action that you want them to take. So even more important than what do you want them to do, which is the call to action, is like, what do you want to say, which is why should we do that? But to say it right, you need to know who you're talking to.
Right.
And so social is a great example because so many people just want the end effect. We want a lot of likes. We want a lot of follows, a lot of engagement, but that's a great example of why you see, especially smaller brands, have really strong social followings, really good numbers on there, or they engage with influencers because of the same reason. Like those influencers they have a ton of followers, but ultimately they're not at the point where they're asking themselves, or they have an agency that asks on their behalf, like, who is this for? Are we making social content? Are we making content just to get likes and follows and, people LOLing at what we're doing? Or are we making things, that are actually building towards that action? Are we talking to the right people online?
And where are those people at? Where are those people at online? Yeah. Are you in the right platform? Or do you have the right platform strategy to make this happen? And so before we dive into the deep stuff, I want to share a quick little message with everyone, and we're going to get right back into it. If you're a business owner who feels your branding isn't truly representing the value that you deliver, check out this free video training that will help you level up your brand's messaging and online presence so that you can start attracting higher quality clients. Visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/level up my branding. So Brett, there's this new buzzword out there in the branding world, and maybe it's not new, but I'm hearing a lot more of it these days. And it's about humanizing your brand to create a more human connection with your ideal audience. I find that to be interesting, very interesting, but how effective is it if you don't know who the hell that person is?
Yeah, man, God, I hope that's not a new thing. I think it's becoming a more popular thing.
I would say popular. Yeah. Yes.
I think it's becoming more widely adopted. I think just, being human in general is such an important thing. I think it's especially if you're a brand and you're trying to humanize the brand. I mean, that's like that. I say that all day is it's the most important thing to really make your brand human and to build an empathetic, understanding, forward-leaning human there, one with an eye to the future so that a brand can grow over time and really find itself aligned with, where culture as a whole and where the world as a whole is headed, and I think that's why you look at brands who stand the test of time, like they have such a clear tone of voice, such a clear personality, such a, how they would behave, at least tonally, in certain situations, even serious ones, where Snickers can have a point of view on something, world events, and they know when to not have a point of view because, hey, we're just candy, like Wendy's doesn't need to be in on every conversation. They have a role to play. And so sometimes, the class clown knows when to be quiet when it's serious because they're, again, an empathetic human. And after so long, they know who they are. And so when we talk about humanizing, that kind of gets into, what I'm excited to talk about this, who is this for? When we talk about targeted audiences, just because what I've seen a lot of, especially over the course of my career, just because I've sort of grown up, the last 15 plus years in advertising and branding, has really just been all this growth and a takeover of big data. And so what we did is we lost a lot of the human in there. Yeah. I think it's important not just to humanize yourself as a business and just be human, but it's important to remember that you're talking to people, like real actual people on the other side. And there's so many times when you use like big data and all this rapid response information to really break an audience down and be like, I want to talk to, I want to talk to, broad income spectrum people in their 30s to 40s in the lower, in the southeast of the United States, and it's like, I want to reach these people who do the specific thing. And I think that's okay when you're buying media and stuff, certainly, but it has a place. But I think when you're building a whole creative strategy or you're doing branding based off of that, what you're doing is you're forgetting about the human being on the other side of it. Like, I don't know anybody in their 20s to 30s. I know somebody that's 24. I know somebody that's 28. I know someone that's 32. I don't know anybody that's, I don't know anybody that's multiple ages at the same time. And so, I think it's so important to, especially as branding, we really want to get a really crystal clear picture, even if it's just one or two people, of the person that you're trying to talk to. Yeah. Talk to one person at a time. Yeah. And really take the time as a business to understand that person. And then when you do, you're going to find yourself in such a more effective communications part. Like whenever you have all of these really complicated, big, unwieldy, layered communications challenges you're trying to solve, you can find yourself being surprised.
Totally.
Yeah, where if all you're doing is following the data and the trends and sort of market reports or stuff, or even just like pixel traffic and things like that, what you're doing is you're overlooking. You mentioned it earlier, like where is that audience? Yeah, because if you think about them as a person rather than a people, then you think about that person differently. You're like, oh, they like to go to the gym on Saturdays. What if instead of trying to reach them, spending in, a billboard and all the chaos there, what if I did something? What if I tried to talk to them when they're in the weight room? Right. What if I wrote something on the mirror and I reached them there? What if we reach them, at an airport carousel? What if we reach them, at the napkins where they're going to be drinking because they do a lot of flying? I'm talking to, if I'm, let's say I'm one of your clients, right? I'm a coach who wants to talk to business owners, and these business owners, I know that they're going to be traveling a lot for conferences in 2022, so 6 months lead time. I want to be able to give my agency enough time to make something meaningful and to really think through how we're going to reach them early 2022. Yep. Rather than trying to get in there with the noise, if I think about, okay, let's talk about James, a business owner. And James is been cooped up. He's got a family. So, they're looking to get outside. They want to do more when they travel. So what if I can put together, through my brand expertise, what if I can actually help him do a little bit of urban exploration, get to know the city he's in whenever he goes out to this business conference that he's going to be in. So then I don't have to pay money to the business conference and the convention hall or whatever to try to outspend them. I can maybe talk to the local hotel and say, like, hey, do you mind if I put a care package in your room during convention week? And again, like all that is just media. That's not even the creative yet. I don't know what goes into that care package. I don't know,
right.
The messaging, but it's a more interesting place because you're reaching somebody where they are. You're surprising them and you're adding value to the things that they do. And I think you see that from the best brands, but yeah, even if you're doing something like an email campaign or a click funnel, thinking about your audience is so important. I mean, getting back to the social side of things, right?
Well, I leverage the crap out of social when it comes to listening. And I will ask my audience, specifically on Instagram, because that's where I have close proxemics. I could go and do an IG story. I could do a live stream and I could get answers pretty damn like on the spot, right? Like immediately. And I put out a post the other day and I said, how can I help serve you better? What could this account do better to help you with your marketing and branding challenges? And I got 30 something, 50 something comments. I don't remember. And to your point, I was shocked at some of the stuff that they wanted. There was a couple of clients that responded, and said, I would love to have more insights from you regarding business mindset. Now, what does that have to do with branding and marketing and design? Well, a lot if it's angled the right way, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that one took me kind of off guard a little bit because I was like, wow, I would love to talk about that. I'm probably one of the most business focused creatives that I know on the planet. And I love talking business, right? So I could talk about that all day long. So I jotted it down. I'm constant. And then there was another client that responded, I would love for you to talk more about funnel strategy, like the funnel strategy you have for your podcast. Like I did a whole episode on that. I think it was on my YouTube channel, not a podcast, but they loved it. Right. So really listening to who it is. And I think you and I had this conversation a couple months back and we were chatting it up and you were like, dude, speak to your client, not an audience. Like when you're out on social, speak, like when you're creating content, speak to a client, not an audience. And so I'm listening to this podcast this morning. And for those folks that know who Dan Sullivan is, he's the founder of Strategic Coach. Highly, highly recommend. I've already have it on my 2022 to-do list is to get into Strategic Coach and be in their program because I know Blair Enns is in it and there's a few other folks that are in it that I know of that speak so highly of it. So I'm listening to Dan's podcast and he's interviewing one of his coaching members. And this guy speaks with such authority, such like certainty and who he wants to serve. And I was like, who is this Justin guy? So I go on Instagram to find him. Sure as shit, he's following me. And so I send him a DM and I go, it's so ironic. I listened to you today on Dan's show and you're following me. I said, is that a coincidence? No. I said, so I wanted to reach out and just say, what's up? I really enjoyed your show, your episode, because how a matter of fact you were about the people that you wanted to serve. He said, and just to streamline this a little bit, Justin was saying things like, I only want to work with people that are hell-bent serious about growing their business and being one of the greats at what they do, right? I only want to work with people that can afford at minimum $20,000 as an investment for my services. I only want to surround myself with entrepreneurs they don't focus on competition. They focus on collaboration. And so I reached out to him and I said, dude, we got to chat because you were speaking my language. And he says, all right, here's my Calendly link, but here's an assessment I want you to take right away. And so I fill it out the first time and it's like, the assessment wasn't computing in my head. And I got my results back and I'm like, no, dude, this is so off. And then I went back and I did the assessment again, realizing what I did wrong the first time. And I scored like an 86 out of 96. And I was like, so I messaged him back and I was like, dude, look at the second result more than the first. The second one's way more precise. He goes, yeah, I almost canceled the whole appointment on Monday when I got your first results back. And we were cracking up. And so he just reminded me on when you get really, really clear on who it is that you want to serve and just speak to them, it makes things a hell of a lot easier. So he actually inspired me. He doesn't know this yet. I'll tell him on Monday when I talk to him. But I updated my Instagram bio and I said, instead of this flat sort of bland vanilla bio that I had in there 2 days ago or yesterday, I wrote, I'm a designer strategist who helps businesses, and I put in parentheses, revenues of $250K plus with their messaging, positioning, and brand identity. And then my strong call to action is book an assessment. It's $500. It's not cheap, right? I want to know that you're a serious player right away because I only want to play with serious players, bottom line. So I think that bio adjustment, like because in the beginning, it just said, I work with businesses to help them with their messaging and blah, 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 blah. That could be somebody who just started out. It could be somebody who's been in business for 20 years. It's not specific. So I have a very specific revenue of business that I work with. And that will disqualify a lot of businesses. Now I'm going to get followers. I'm going to get people's attention that are in that category. Everybody else, they probably won't follow me. Why? Because the content's not going to make sense to them. And that's the give and take that you need to live with, right? When you're building your audience and creating content that serves a target audience. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah.
Right? So I think just tackling it in order. One thing you mentioned earlier is just the question you put out, right? Like the way you put the question out. I think that's a really great example of the way we can think about research, right? Mm-hmm. The way we can think about how we learn about the people that we're talking to. And you did that by asking them.
Yeah.
I think that's something people forget they can do. Like so many times people just rush to Google or, to look up what insights that everybody has access to. But if you know who you're talking to, then you know people who are like that person. If you know people that kind of fit that bill, and then you can just ask them questions. And that's the difference, I think, between like quant and qual data. Like
right.
Qualitative, takes the time to get to know a person. Mm-hmm. It takes the time to have a conversation and ask them more open-ended questions, things that don't generally go into a larger data set. It's more you're trying to learn about human insights there. And I think that's really, when we look at the past and most effective marketing and branding exercises, those tend to greatly not just overperform, but also matter. They're the ones you remember because they're the ones that matter to you as a person or didn't.
Right.
They're the ones that made you not like that brand and understand that wasn't for you. Great. Think about how many brands know who they're not for. In addition to knowing who they're for, I think Apple does a fantastic job of that.
Yep.
They Mac PC again knows exactly who it's for and not for. But again, it's taking the time to get to know them, just asking them. Like we forget that we can just ask people questions.
Yeah.
And sit with them especially with all the digital communications tools that we as a people have had to familiarize ourselves with, not just like tech forward people in advertising or branding and marketing, like, that need to do teleconference a lot, but, everybody, the grandparents are all on Zoom now, like my parents are Zooming with the grandkids.
Yeah.
And it's, like everybody has a new base level. So it's so much easier to get, to arrange time and get an intimate understanding with people and just ask them questions.
Yeah. And then
just do that, like send people an email.
That's it. That's another great way. Like, what can I help you with this week? What are you struggling with this week? I see people ask that question all the time, and you can't buy that. Like that information, that feedback is priceless. Go to other competitors that have your client base that you want. Yeah. Right. And look how they're speaking to that. So I'm on like 3 or 4 different email lists of my competitors. Just tuning in. Right. And that's great competitive research, too, to understand like, how are they talking to the same audience? I think you can learn a lot there. Absolutely.
Another thing you mentioned when you were talking about what you learned in watching that person was you touched on like the issue of like psychographics. I always find that to me as a creative first, they tend to be what matters most whenever we're developing creative.
I noticed that too.
Like psychographics over demographics all day long, because that's what helps me know who I'm talking to and gives me those human insights. And so it's more important for me to understand what life stage somebody's in than understanding age brackets and income brackets. I understand those numbers, but what do those numbers mean? What are the problems that come with you being in? If I'm selling, if my client is Rolls Royce and I'm talking to, percent within a percent of the population, then like, what are the problems and challenges that person faces?
Right.
What are some new ways to talk to that person who doesn't take in media the same way I do? And how do I not speak up to them when marketing to them? How do I talk to them at their level? And same thing whenever we're selling Lay's potato chips. How do you not talk down to people, as a marketer? How do you, when you're developing your brand? And so I think so much of that is important. And just getting back to the whole social thing of it all, like, do you want clicks and engagement and likes, or do you want to build an audience that cares about what you're doing? Right. And to do that second thing, to get an audience that buys and buys in, you need to know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And then I think even just to go back to your example, do you mind if we get into your Instagram for a moment?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So what you did there was you understood the type of person you're talking to. Now, what if we tried to make that even more intimate? What if instead of using your bio to talk about yourself, like I'm a designer brand, what if you're talking to you? What if I talk to you? What if I'm talking to, what if I'm talking to, if you're a business owner, 250K plus revenue, struggling with brand identity, positioning or messaging, I can help. Book a brand assessment at uniquedesigns.net. Then your bio speaks to me, the human being and the person, rather than an audience who I may or may not identify with. And I'll know if you're talking to me or not if you say you, but at least this way it starts to feel more intimate and purposeful now.
Yeah.
And now you as a business, even if your primary touch point is social, you're thinking about me in that different way, and so
I like that.
Yeah. So I think just like, again, it's those ways we can think about the human on the other side is who is this for?
So here's a perfect example. So Anks Patel he's watching live here with us, and he asks, what are some of the tactics that help build those insights into, who that ideal client is. So we discussed some of it is just going out on social and asking a question, signing up for competitor email lists and seeing how they're speaking to their clients. Look at their case studies, look at their video testimonials from their clients, listen to the language of their clients, see what they're saying. I have a 48-page Google Doc that is just, I call it the swipe file, and it is literally tons of just snippets of my competitors' testimonies and the language that they use, right? They all say spinning their wheels. They have all these ideas and they're spinning their wheels. I'm working too much in the business instead of on it, right? This is the language that my clients speak. The other one is, I just want this done for me. Like, I'll do the high level stuff with you, but I don't give a shit how a logo's made. That's why I'm hiring you. Right?
Yeah.
And so when you hear this stuff, you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to put a video tutorial on how to design a logo. That's not my audience. Right? So those are just some simple ways to help build those insights, because then you could dig deeper into what Brett was saying then, because now you have some data, you have some data to play with. And then you go deeper into, all right, well, why are they saying that? What's making them say that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a good way to think about it is just at some level, I'm assuming we're talking to business owners, right? Not just other marketers here, but knowing we have a mix. I mean, regardless, if you're a business owner and you're hiring an agency or you're hiring a branding or design firm, or you're hiring something in between, or even a consultant, it's still on you as the principal owner of that business. You need to understand, like, at some point, who you're making your product for, who you're making, this content for. And so you need to remember that sort of at every stage, because those people might be taking in your brand in a different way. And I think we are probably going to get into a whole conversation around, touch points on a different day. But a good way to think about it is just an old teacher put it best. I think one way to think about us is just as cultural anthropologists.
Yeah, that's right? A good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, we have to be observers of human nature and of humanity. And so think like an anthropologist a little bit in order to find your audience and learn about them. So again, it's not relying too much on data, especially, and that's something that we're seeing in the industry anyway with strategy, is with pixel tracking, going away with, all the Facebook data mining with the apps, where Apple is taking the future of just like big data. I don't think it's going anywhere, because a lot of people are going to opt in,
right?
Just for ease of use anyway. But I think in this opt-in world, that data is going to become less reliable.
Yeah.
And so you're going to need to lean on those human insights more. And so it's important to think about, how do you learn about a person? If you like, what are the tools? Yeah. What are the tools?
You got to hang out with you got to hang out with them. And that's why I encourage my clients and I encourage my audience to get out on social and get social. We do. Yeah. I now that I'm not on Clubhouse so much, I'm doing live streams on Instagram 2, 3, 4, sometimes 4 times a week if I'm loving it. And I'm noticing that the audience is just getting more and more engaged, and they always come with great questions. And they don't see me, but I'm writing the good questions down. And I'm like, "Oh, this is a good one. This is a podcast episode. This is a live stream on my YouTube channel." Like, whoa, this is awesome. And so I'll give you a quick example. So after today and listening to Justin on the podcast and I'm listening to him speak, he mentioned something along the lines of, if somebody asks me, I'll know right away if a prospect is a good fit by the questions that they ask me, and if the word cost comes out of their mouth, I immediately disqualify them. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And he was like, I only work with investors, quote unquote. like people that invest in themselves, people that invest in their business. Because if somebody comes to me and says, well, what's this going to cost me? They're already thinking that it's a cost, not an investment. So I was right.
How much do I have to spend on this?
Right. Like, how much is this going to beat me up? Right.
Yeah. And versus, what level of investment do I need to make in order to reach this goal?
Yeah. Because it's not even a thought, right? It's either they're going to do it or they're not. So I'm going to put out a post on Instagram today or tomorrow. I don't know yet, but I'm going to put something along the lines of this. If you ask me how much my services cost, you're already not my client.
Yeah.
That is going to, it may piss some people off, but because I can hear the some people going, well, then how else are we supposed to know how much you charge? That post flew over your head so fast, you don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
But the higher level folks, they're going to be like, okay, I get this guy. He's like me. He doesn't look at it as a cost. He looks at things as investments. He's more like me. I can align with him. His values are like my values. Boom, done. So
that's actually a lot of the way that we talk about it at B&G too. Whenever especially when we look at like branding exercises and such, knowing, we talk about it like it's an investment. So I think to that point, take that a step further. Like, again, like thinking about talking to that person in every channel then. So knowing who you want to speak to, that changes not just your, sales call, but it also changes how you talk about your services online.
Right.
How you talk about it through marketing and branding and social, all these different things. Like, it's like, cool, like, great. Like how I talk about my services online is going to be consistent now, because I know that I don't sell things for a cost. I don't sell things. I offer you a chance to invest in your business. I offer you an opportunity to invest in yourself and invest in your future. And now it's my job as, a marketer, as somebody solving this communications challenge, assuming we have the branding done and we know who the brand is. So now as communications experts, we need to grow the brand and evolve it. And so, great, cool. I know that I only want to talk to people who invest in their business. They don't spend money on it.
Right.
Great. Cool. So like, I know that I can talk to that person now, and I know how to talk to that person, and I know maybe where to talk to that person. Like, again, it's, there's something.
Here's
really
a good one.
Interesting.
Here's a good one, Brett. Yeah. So Anna Moss, love her, by the way. She's out in the UK. She asks, I'm in the process of niching down to a tight premium client. No idea which industry I want my ideal client to be in, but I've delivered brand strategy for such a wide variety of clients. How do I choose? That's a question we get all the time. Such a popular question, and a good one. It's a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that's funny enough, I think it's really parallels the advice I give a lot whenever we're mentoring younger creatives as well, just in their portfolios, and also agencies in sort of how they build their capes, decks, and their own agency portfolios and reels. It's, what you want to look for is there's a lot of information you can find out there on niching down, like good, just tactical advice, like look through your history of work. Who did you enjoy working on the most? Where did you feel the most confident? What types of clients have you had the most of? And you might start to see trends in your past. But also, if you want to change and you want to go into a tighter, like vertical niche, right? Then what you might want to do is really start to, maybe just as an exercise, try to describe that client as a person, not as a people, not as an audience, not as a data set. Just tell me about the person you want to work with.
Right.
Tell me about your ideal client. Who are they? What do they do? Where do they eat? What kind of car do they drive? Where do they live? What's their family and relationship status?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of art do they like? What kind of TV do they watch? Mm-hmm. What kind of podcast do they listen to?
And then wrap that all up in the final question. What does that say about them?
Yeah.
What does that say? What does all of that say about them?
Yeah. And then what you unlock, once you have that clarity, then it becomes really easy to unlock, because I think this is a kind of a two-part question, right? So niching down, but then also you've done it for such a wide variety of clients. How do you choose? So that'll help you with the choice thing. But then when you talk about how to reach those people, right? Like, who is this for? Now I know who this is for. How do I reach them? Mm-hmm. Now that you know who it's for, suddenly you can start connecting nonlinear. You can make nonlinear connections, right? You can tie in. If this is, I work for, my clients are all RNs. They're all registered nurses. I've done a lot of car advertising. Mm-hmm. Now that I know so much about RNs and I have a history of expertise on cars, like, let me talk to you a little bit about why car advertising is a benefit to you as an RN. Let me tell you why that matters. And you can start drawing parallels. Like, cool. Like, that speed and technology matter most. That, comfort matters on a road trip the same way it matters on a, marathon, 12, 14-hour shift. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But just as an example, it's like, cool. Like, we can start drawing parallels, and those, first level thoughts like might be really cheesy, but once you really dig into it and talk it out and think it out, suddenly your really wide, diverse portfolio is suddenly tailored in and like completely focused on that one client that you want to reach. Yep. And now you know how to talk about all of your work and all of your expertise and a really wildly diverse past. Like, for instance, me, I can talk about how my, history is before I got into art and design, even like my history as a graffiti artist, or my history as a dog walker, my history as, somebody who built props for TV shows, like, whatever, doing punch up on scripts, like how all that now can help you as a brand or as a business, how that helps me be able to create a launch campaign for a Coca-Cola product, in South America. I can draw a direct A to B line because I know who I'm talking to today, and I can reference my past and be like, cool, like, well, this little part really gives me an advantage here. And so I think there's so many reasons why it's important for us to talk about who this is for. And again, if you're a business and you're briefing your agency or your creative partners, it's important for you to have these answers, or at least to be thinking about this ahead of time, so that that's so much more efficient. You're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of money doing agency briefs and scopes of work, and really you're adding weeks to that process so that somebody else can ask those questions on your behalf. Right. Versus if you know that, all of a sudden you can teach that to everybody who works under you at your business, everybody who works around you at your business. Your internal communications change because, like, now okay, who is this t-shirt for? This is for an employee. What type of person is it? Because now I'm not thinking about my employees as faceless people anymore. I'm thinking about them as humans. Right. I want to hire this type of person. Great.
Here's something that I want to, and we got to wrap up here because I don't want to be late for my next interview. But here's something that I really want to get across to everybody. And I love everything that you just said, Brett, was gold. I mean, it was absolute gold. Here's one thing that I'll share with you. Life is way too damn short these days. Ever since I turned 40 last year, I just see the world in a completely different lens. And I said to myself, I am not going to live my next 40 years, God willing, the same way I lived my first 40 years. I'm not going to have the clients that dragged me through mud or that didn't appreciate me or they were the wrong fits and fill in the blank. Those days are history. And so I'll share this. I have this little affirmation that I write every morning, and one of the lines in the affirmation is, I only work with people that want to work with me. And the only way that affirmation works is if I know who I want to work with. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know who you want to work with, then you don't know who your brand's for. And that is like peeling fingernails off one finger at a time and running your hands under hot water when running a business, in my opinion. So that's why it's so important. And it's the reason why we're having this conversation today about who your brand is for, because if you can't get that right, I shouldn't say right, but dialed in, then you're going to struggle tremendously in your content, in your messaging, in your identity, in your positioning. Everything is going to struggle. This is why branding is so damn important. So to wrap this up in a bow, 1, know who you want to work with at your core. For me, I like to work with people that are like-minded and have the same personality, same attitude, same outlook on life than I do. They're hungry. They're not afraid to work. They're not afraid to invest. They want to take things. They don't want yesterday or they don't want today to be the same as yesterday. They're always trying to improve. Not that everything is never good enough, but there's better things to see out there and they want to explore. They want to experience, right? And they know that they are capable. They just need help. That's the client that I want to work with because I am the same way. As stubborn as I could be sometimes, when I know it's time, and I just go. So get really serious on who it is that you want to serve, and then tell yourself, I'm only working with people that want to work with me.
Yeah,
and just put out the content that is going to align with them, not just to get a giggle, not to get a share, not to get a like or a view, but to really help people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not going to be immediate. I think for everybody listening here, we're saying this after years of doing this every day. I think, if these were easy questions, this wouldn't be a topic of conversation, first of all, but yeah, this is something that's going to require thoughtfulness and it's not going to be an immediate, super clear answer to get it down that simple.
It's not,
so embrace the struggle, embrace the journey, embrace the pain that comes with building these new muscles and these new skills and this new way of thinking. And that's, and it's important, and that's going to be part of it, and just, be there in that process. Right. But once you think about it more, you can tell people as, you can summarize it like to that point. I want to work with someone who's batshit crazy enough to think they can actually change the world.
Yeah, and make the world weirder, like you.
Yeah. I want to work with someone who's just like crazy enough to think they can change the world and think what they do will change it. Yeah, I want to work with that person because then all those other things about a willingness to invest. Are you a startup that's all the buzzwords, like are you a disruptive start? All that's inherent to that, you know? Right. And it's also like risk. I want to work with people who have high risk quotients. But again, like all that's dehumanizing. I want to work with someone who's batshit crazy enough to think what they do can and will change the world.
And here's the last piece. Don't deviate from that. Like if that's what you truly love and that's what makes your heart beat and you to jump out of bed every morning, then embrace that and lean full into that. Brett tells me this all the time. Like, lean into those superpowers that you have or that passion that you have, because I see too many people, they lean in and listen, I'll raise my hand. I've done this before. I lean in and I'm like, oh, somebody made fun of me. Oh, I'm out of here. I'm going and I'll never play in that pond again because somebody made fun of me. Bullshit. Like, that's one person. And so if that person has something negative to say about me, well, that person isn't part of my tribe. So beat it. I'm not.
You said it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said it earlier. Life's too short to worry about that person.
Exactly. Where there's hundreds of other people that'll be like, you know what? Right on, Henry. So I want everybody listening to this today to embrace who that is that they want to serve and lean into it. And don't feel sorry. Don't apologize for that. Like, if that's what you're calling, if that's what you truly feel your calling is, then those are the people that you serve. Right. And so now I'm super over time, but
nice.
I want to
thank you. Yeah, this is great.
This is a great conversation. I mean, I see Peter Butler down here. He said, this live has so much value. It's one of the best. I appreciate you. And
thank you
so much.
Peter.
And it looks like Anna quoted us here. You know, I only want to work with people that work with me. Love this. You know, this was a great conversation. I appreciate Peter and Angst and Anna for coming in on this conversation with us. It was fantastic. Here's what I want you guys to do. Whether you're watching this live or you're listening to it on your podcast platform, take a screenshot of this episode and tag me on Instagram at @thebrandDR. And I'll make sure Brett gets it as well. And I will give you I'll reshare it in my stories, and I will give you a huge shout out. And I just appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and digesting this. This is heavy stuff. This isn't for the beginner, right? This is for people that are ready to roll.
Yeah. Tell us about the person that you make stuff for. And tag us up.
Yes. That's a fantastic idea. That's a fantastic idea. So, all right, guys, I got a jet.
Great.
Have an amazing day. Make sure you drop a review or a subscribe wherever you're checking this out on. And I just appreciate you guys so much. Love you. Keep up the great work. And I'll see you on the next episode real soon. Take care.
Hey everyone, this is Henry Kaminski Jr. again, and really quick, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consult with me right now if you're looking for the clarity and focus you need to build your brand. Over the past 13 years, I've served hundreds of entrepreneurs that have great products but struggled tremendously with articulating its value to their ideal customers. You didn't get into business to just change a few lives, did you? Your ideal clients need you. And when your brand has precision-crafted messaging coupled with beautifully thoughtful design that sounds, looks, and feels like you, they'll know you're the perfect match for them. If this is something you're struggling with, what I want you to do right now is pause this audio and go visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net, and book your one-on-one consult call with me. Remember, the quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients. And the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life.